What up, my homies? CampCrusader here, and welcome to my first ever video game review. I mentioned in a previous update video that I was planning on doing these in the future, and well, just like that, I'm doing one, which is weird because it usually takes me forever to do something after I say it. I plan making as many of these for as many games as possible in the future, hopefully, if I can get those. So I don't know. Yeah, and they are a lot of work to do, so I don't know how I can't do them too often. I'll try to do them as often as possible. So be sure to expect more of these. And since this really isn't a series on my channel, or more sporadic uploads, it won't be taking up any spots in my schedule, which is good. Because we all know that I don't have any room in my schedule for any of those. I also mentioned in that same update video that I wanted to make some changes to my channel to make it more than just a pure gaming channel. And obviously this is one of those changes. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy my first review. And just to be clear, in future reviews, I won't be doing any of this weird explaining stuff. This being an exception, because I kind of have to explain myself. In future, we'll just get straight into the review. So basically, yeah, I worked really hard on this past week, and hope you guys enjoy. What up, my metal wrecking, robot hacking homies? CampCrusader here, and welcome to my first ever game review. Today we'll be reviewing RIVE Ultimate Edition for Nintendo Switch, as you probably could guess from the gameplay and from my video earlier this Wednesday. Thanks a great bunch to Two Tribes for providing me with a review copy of their game, and I guess without further ado, let's get on with this thing. RIVE is a platforming action shoot-'em-up with the main goal to make it from one point to another while fighting hordes of mechanical enemies. You, the player, control a tiny ship that has a machine gun attached to it, which enables easy shooting towards immense waves of enemies. Throughout the game, you switch between playing in two different playstyles. The first one being in zero gravity, where you fly your ship around space or water, floating around wherever you please. Basically, you can fly up without worrying about gravity or anything. And the second playstyle, which is used a bit more frequently within the game, has the player walking around on the ground like a traditional platformer. You know what I mean? Gravity. You can't float around everywhere. You just attach to the ground. I like both these playstyles personally a lot. But I'm gonna have to say that I like the gravity one a bit more, just because it's used a lot more within the game. So I kind of am forced to like it a bit more. The game, even on normal mode, is still immensely hard, which I can see causing a bit of a problem for a lot of casual gamers. But with this extra difficulty, it makes it that much more satisfying to destroy each enemy. To switch up gameplay a bit, every once in a while you will come across an upgrade pad, which is usually found in the main warp station of the game, which allows you to, you guessed it, upgrade your weapons, armor, etc., all that good stuff. The upgrades are limited, however, only with around 10 to choose from, so that was kind of a bummer. I kind of wish they used something more extensive like an upgrade tree, but given the length of the game, this doesn't really pose too much of a problem, because by the time you'll have enough money to do that, the game will probably be over. Besides purchasing upgrades, there were also upgrades kind of found occasionally throughout the game in the form of mandatory collected green vials. Called viruses by the game's main antagonist, these hacks, per se, allow the player to hack into specific enemies found within the game. Each hack allows players to gain limited new abilities. For example, early in the game, which is the first hack you will obtain, allows you to hack into a robot that will slowly heal you after being damaged. While progressing through different parts of the game, different mechanics are slowly introduced to the player to spice up gameplay, such as gravity spheres, water, lava, etc. You get the gist. After each room or big wave of enemies, the game will give you a checkpoint, which in my opinion was a little too frequent. Usually most games give you checkpoints after a level or something like that. They give you it after each wave of enemies, or each room or something like that, which is a little too frequent. But, of course, the extremely hard gameplay kind of makes up with this, so I guess it's a good equilibrium there, because first off, you die a lot, and then second off, you get a lot of checkpoints, so I guess it kind of mixes in right there. The gameplay constantly makes subtle and not so subtle nods towards old games. For example, at one point in the game, when you are flying in zero gravity mode, you can shoot only forward, and they make a little dialogue quote to reference this, but to replicate an old arcade shooter, you can only shoot forward, and it's a side-scrolling, so you can't shoot backwards, up, all around 360 degrees. With all the things mixed together, RIVE's gameplay was a much more modern take on the classic platforming shoot-'em-up. From a perspective from a person who never got to grow up with these old classic games, RIVE's exhilarating gameplay was a breath of fresh air from what kids of this generation tend to play, which would be, obviously, like, more open, technically advanced games. Overall, I give RIVE's gameplay 9 berries off the bush. Yeah, that's how I'm doing these. Now, RIVE's gameplay is great and all. What's a game's gameplay without its controls? Game's gameplay. Oh, that's a tongue twister. I presume the controls are the same for the Nintendo Switch Pro Controller, but since I play with the Joy-Cons because I don't have a Nintendo Switch Pro Controller, I'll be referring to these for the controls that can't speak. So first off, the left joystick is used to move, while the right joystick is used to aim and shoot. Pressing the ZL button once will allow you to jump while in gravity mode, and will double jump if tapped in succession. The ZR button is used to send out your special attack, which can be switched out by pressing each special's corresponding lettered button. The A, X, Y, A, B, X, Y, I can't speak. Above that, either R or L will trigger your ship's hacking mode. So my only complaint with this layout of controls is that ZL is used to jump and not the traditional B. And with no way to change the control scheme, players are kind of stuck not being able to adjust controls to their liking. It did take me a while to adjust to these controls, but it got easier over time, obviously, like most things. This may have been on my part, but amidst all the chaos of fighting and stuff like that, I continuously found myself forgetting controls and spamming random attacks to escape without dying. So obviously that might have been my part, but I did find it kind of a problem while playing. Not to mention moving is very sensitive, and being a fast-paced platformer, I can't speak again, it makes it very hard to stop from slipping off platforms with like a tiny flick of the stick. It's like very sensitive. Luckily, with the large amounts of enemies swarming you, a lot of these nitpicks can really easily be overcome, because you're not going to be like, oh, perfect platforming while you're trying to shoot a million of enemies. So overall, I give RIVE's control scheme, or controls, a 7 berries off the bush. RIVE Ultimate Edition for Nintendo Switch runs at a solid 1080p 60 frames per second while docked, and 720p while undocked. While in docked mode, the game runs extremely smoothly. Okay, did I just say extremely smoothly? Oh my gosh. Okay. Back to what I was saying. While in docked mode, the game runs extremely smoothly, even with immense amounts of enemies on screen. Not once do they ever encounter a frame drop of any kind, which surprised me. On the other hand, while undocked, sadly, the game runs extremely poorly with lag scattered throughout the game. It was very unplayable. Just a prank. I was genuinely surprised on how well the game ran it undocked, because I expected it to not run very well, or just like have stutters, lags with a lot of enemies, but it ran just as perfect as docked, and I never found a frame drop once in my entire time playing. I think RIME should take notes on this game, because they had a lot of frame drops in both modes. Every time an enemy is killed, the screen and controls rumble, which makes it extremely satisfying to get your bullets lodged into each enemy. But be cautious, because with most games of this genre, with lots of shaking and fast-paced action, I wouldn't be surprised if this could cause some headaches. But that's not for me, obviously, but I could see that causing a problem for some people. Putting that aside, RIVE's graphics and visuals combined with its mechanized art style makes me give this category of the review a grand spanking 10 whole berries picked off the bush. With all action-packed games, there always needs to be a killer soundtrack to get you pumped up whenever you play, and RIVE Ultimate Edition accomplishes just that. RIVE's soundtrack is fast-paced and gives off mechanical-like vibes. I don't know how that's possible. It just does. The ambience, it fits with the game perfectly. Perfectly fits the setting of the game, like I just said. The music isn't anything groundbreaking, like with games like Undertale and Stardew Valley, which were acclaimed for its music and stuff like that. But in this case, it really doesn't need to be. The music may not be something I'd listen to in my personal playlist, like I do with some other game soundtracks, but during gameplay, in the moment, it definitely does its job to get me pumped up while playing and shooting up some enemies. Alongside the music, RIVE also has 2 voice-acted characters to help progress the story and ease the intense action with funny quips and quotes throughout your gameplay. My only complaint regarding the game's voice acting is that it's kind of awkward and one-sided when the protagonist is alone and talking to himself. I understand why it's necessary to give hints and tips and just to make it seem more real, but it felt one-sided and kind of awkward. So nothing too bad. It's just one of my nitpicks, pet peeves, I guess. Obviously, like I just said, this is me just nitpicking. Because overall the voice quality is very good. So I'd say Rive's music / sounds gets a total of 8 berries picked off the bush. Traditionally, shoot 'em ups don't really have a story, or they don't need to have a story. But Rive having a story throughout the I was supposed to say throughout the game makes playing the game that much more interesting and fun to play. Because I really like stories in video games, and I really appreciate how they put one in there, even though shoot 'em ups don't typically have stories or elaborated ones, I guess. The story starts off. Oh, minor spoilers, by the way, for the first couple missions. The story starts off with a rough around the edges man, fittingly named Roughshot, flying a small ship around space. Eventually, he comes across this strange starship that he decides to enter for some reason. Because that's always a good idea. Upon entering the ship, he's greeted by this strange AI robot dude who essentially acts as the main antagonist later on in the story and the plot progressor, basically. Ignoring him, Roughshot attempts to explore the ship in search of valuable loot. Once this little tutorial section is over, the game becomes a bit cliche where the player attempts to escape the ship, but it can't because of the corrupt AI, which is very similar to Portal and other games of the genre, or not genre, but I don't know, like it's a very cliche plot, stuff like that. Although it's implied that the devs do know about this because they do poke fun in the dialogue. They do this quite a lot in the game. They kind of make fun of themselves, which is funny, and it's nice because it shows that developers know they're not making like weird things in games. They're like acknowledging it. The story is nothing really exceptional. Like I just said, it was a bit cliche. I won't talk about any further in the game so I can avoid spoilers, or so you guys can avoid spoilers. But just having the little dialogues and console logs at the end of each mission, it's a nice way to spice up gameplay a bit. And with me, I'm very picky, I guess, with my stories, and I like them. So I liked how they implemented that just at all in the first place. They could have just had you fly in and then do whatever you need to do. But while the robot talks to you, you do have the option to kill it, like with your bullets, and skip the story, which I like. My interest wasn't exactly in the story itself. I mean, I was interested, but like my whole like amazement wasn't really in that. It was kind of with how they presented it and implemented it, because you could kill the robot and skip the story, which is good for players who aren't interested, because I know a lot of people who don't like the story in video games, so they just like try to like blast through and like click A and mash A, and this guy you can just kill the robot and be like, okay, I'm not listening to you. So I mean, overall, I'd give Rive's story a solid 8 berries off the bush. Rive Ultimate Edition for Nintendo Switch is $15 in United States dollars, obviously. But as right now, it's on sale for I think it's launch week. I don't know if it extends further than that, for $12.25 USD. So with this purchase, you're getting around 4 hours of gameplay for the main story mode. You can replay the campaign in speedrun mode, a replay of the campaign in single credit mode, which means you have 1 life, 18 challenges, 48 achievements, 3 battle arenas, and a co-op mode, which you guys saw me play on Wednesday. So I'm not sure if those are the exact numbers for the challenges and battle arenas, because I may not have unlocked them all, if there is any, but I think that is the base number, so you can expect something along those lines. Not to mention, you can attempt the game in hard mode, which, considering the game's already hard, is probably super hard. And although this sounds like a lot of content, I'm sure completionists could probably beat this game around 10 hours or less. This is a pure estimate number because I haven't 100%ed it, so I have no thing to base it off of. I'm just kind of basing it off of what the 4 hours plus all the other stuff, and depending on how fast you can do it. So the number's relatively small compared to some other games of its price, such as Flaming the Flood and Stardew Valley on Switch. They're both $15, and Flaming the Flood's got like 10 hours for the main story. Stardew Valley's got basically infinite hours. All of the game is smallish in terms of hours. The time I spent playing it I had a complete blast playing this game. I'll go over this a bit more later on, but I give RIVE's content a 6 berries off the bush. To be honest, I wasn't really completely sold on RIVE before playing it, but after playing it for a week, I can definitely say that this opinion has changed, and I'm glad to say that because even though I wasn't completely sold, I was really hoping that I'd like it, which I ended up doing, so that's always good. Blasting through waves of enemies and shooting them into oblivion is surprisingly fun, and with the added suspense of not knowing where the enemies are, this game becomes even more enjoyable. Cannot stress that enough. The satisfaction of shooting the enemies is immense. It's great. I just hit the table. Usually I rage at hard games. Shovel Knight, Super Mario World, Mega Man 2, if you look back on my channel for some examples. But I really never found myself raging on this game, even though it's really hard. I found myself wanting to continue and like find more strategies to progress forward in the game. And somehow I was kind of surprised at myself that I didn't rage, which I don't know why. I mean, I guess they just made it in such a good way that it makes it fun to die. Like, you want to try harder. So yeah, overall, I'd give the amount of fun had while playing this game, the overall enjoyment, a 9 berries off the bush. So what's the verdict in all this I'm saying? Well, RIVE Ultimate Edition for Nintendo Switch is a thrilling and exciting addition to the Switch's growing library. It's old school shooting. Wait, did I just say old school? Okay, well, I need to think about what I say. Old school shooting. The old school shooting style mixed with a modern take on the genre makes RIVE definitely a title to take a look at. Yeah, it's priced at 15 USD. Like I said, that $12.25 USD right now for the sale. I'd say RIVE, it's a bit on the pricey side for the amount of gameplay you're going to get, so I definitely say to wait for a sale, which is on sale right now, so I'd recommend getting it right now is what I'm saying. But putting the price aside, I'd really, honestly, I'd full-heartedly, I can't speak, recommend RIVE to any gamer, new or old, because there's something for everyone in there. Averaging all the numbers together of all my review scores for all the categories, my final review score for RIVE Ultimate Edition on Nintendo Switch is 8 berries off the bush. So next time you go and you have $15 to spare and you're looking for a quick shoot 'em up to play, definitely go click add to cart and purchase RIVE Ultimate Edition. Thanks again for Two Tribes for giving me a review copy of their game. And since this is my first review, I'd really appreciate if you comment down below stuff I could do better. I feel like I could have written this a bit more, not scriptedly. But I mean, obviously not the whole thing was scripted, but most of it was. So I mean, I'm probably going to work on that in future reviews. But comment down below anything you have to criticize and what you want me to do better in reviews. This is my first one, so I'm not really experienced. But I guess with that being said, thanks Two Tribes a lot for a review copy of your game. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.